Hi, my friends. Welcome. This is the Back to Me podcast, and this is Heather, and I am super excited that you're here. You are going to hear some tips and some tricks and some ideas to help you live your happiest and healthiest self. I call it Back to Me because when you are taking care of yourself, back to me, then you can take better care of others, and we can all make the world a better place. This is Wellness Your Way, and I am super happy that you're here. Hello, my friend. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is, of course, the Back to Me podcast. And we're going to talk one of my favorite topics today, believe it or not, which is going to be kind of weird because you'll say, really, Heather, that's your favorite topic? But it is, because the more you know, and the more you can decide how you want to live. So today, see if I get it right. Alison Bladh. Yes?
Yes, that was right. Well done.
Yay! Woohoo! I had to write it down phonetically. I haven't learned Swedish yet. I'm working on French right now. But Alison, welcome. I put down that you're a nutritional therapist, but I feel like you're so much more than that. And we're going to talk. People are like, what are we going to talk about, Heather? But before we get to that, have you always been in this nutrition world, or what drew you into that nutrition world and using it to change things?
Oh, thank you, Heather. It's really lovely to be here today. Yeah, brought me into nutritional therapy. My story really started when I was a teenager. So long story short, when I was a teenager, I suffered from acne. You know, I had very bad skin, and it's traumatic enough being a teenager, isn't it, without suddenly having loads of acne. And that really led me, even at that young age, led me down the route of, what can I do for my skin? Do I just have to take medication? So I started looking at my diet, lifestyle, all of those things, and made some adjustments and saw a difference in my skin. And that led me into kind of the hormone skin health area. So I initially trained and worked as an esthetician, as a beauty therapist for many years, specializing, because of my love of hormones, in women's hormonal skin health, because perimenopause, menopause comes along with it a lot of changes in the skin, and you can actually develop acne then. I very soon came to realize, working with women with skin health, that you needed that nutritional piece. You needed the lifestyle, like lifestyle medicine as well. So that's when I went back to university and trained and studied nutritional science, to have that in my toolkit so I can help women through the menopausal transition. So that's really, long story short, what made me study nutrition and functional medicine, because I work with a functional medicine model, really looking at the whole person.
Right. And it is interesting, because I remember before menopause came upon me and visited me, the only thing you really knew was hot flashes. You don't know about all of the other things. And at one point I said it could probably fit in a book. And I know that you've got your book coming out later. But one of my friends said, well, there is a book. And I said, what? Because I was having headaches and I didn't have acne. I had like the dry, patchy skin, and oh my goodness, hot flashes are just one thing. And I guess they're just the most famous one. I don't know. But when people think about, oh my gosh, I have to change my diet. And so what do you find is the most common, I guess, complaint that women come with? Is it hot flashes, or is it, I know you started in skin, but
yeah, the women, hot flashes is that classic symptom, isn't it, that suddenly kind of creeps up on you when you come into perimenopause, or can not all women experience, and some women just glide through and don't experience any symptoms, but that is quite uncommon.
That's not fair.
No. But the hot flash, or hot flush, as they're called as well, is a typical sign of hormone fluctuations, hormone declines. But I see with my clients, hot flashes is one of them, but things that really start to kind of creep in are things like anxiety, brain fog, lack of focus, and that kind of just mood swings and irritability. You find that your tolerance for things is way lower than it used to be. Weight gain, particularly around the stomach area, is another very classical sign of menopause. It tends, when we get over in our 40s as women, coming up to 45, a lot of women find that they put weight on the belly area, and that one of the there's many factors in the cause of that, but one of them is the hormone changes and fluctuations. I think there's over like 40 different menopausal symptoms, and it's a very individual journey for women. It can be itchy skin, joint pain. It's just so individual. But hot flashes, anxiety, sleep problems, that's a very common one as well. Is you wake up in the middle of the night, you find it hard to sleep, you have night sweats, which obviously
You're reminding me of all the things. So I think I'm about 12, 10 or 11, 12 years officially post, like into full menopause. But I can remember all of those things. I can remember having to sleep with a towel underneath me all of a sudden because I would get so sweaty and thinking, I'm not changing my sheets right now, so my solution was sleeping on a towel. And so if anybody knows me, I'm not a person who tends to get upset at things, but my clearest memory was my husband brought my laundry upstairs for me in the basket. And I was really angry and I kicked it across the room. And I think people get divorced because of menopause, because we don't understand how it's not really in our control. I mean, luckily I meditated for a long time. So inside my head, I'm thinking, who is this crazy person? So I didn't speak. And my husband, being very smart, didn't ask me anything. He just said, I'm going to bed now. And he left the room. And we didn't talk about it till the next day. But if you're not aware of all these things that are happening to you, it can seem like you're going crazy, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said, Heather. It can really affect you, and that emotional side of it, with irritability, with mood swings. If you don't tend to understand what is going on, you do think that you're going crazy. And I think a point that you made there about people splitting up with their partner, it does happen, because all of a sudden you're in a way your personality changes a bit. I did a podcast recently actually with a lawyer firm, because they'd seen this pattern. They specifically worked with people that were getting divorced.
Right.
And they just seen this pattern that it was women of this certain age, which was menopausal age. Okay, I'm not saying you can't blame it all on the menopause,
No.
but I think they think that is a factor coming into it, because our hormones, we need estrogen, we need progesterone and testosterone, and when we lose those hormones or they decline, it has a huge effect on how we feel emotionally. And it can make you irritable. You just have no tolerance for anything. And you become less happy as well.
Right.
So, it does affect relationships. So I think it's important, which I actually go into in my book, that how do you approach these subjects with your partner, with your friends, to say, this is what I'm going through. I'm not actually just changing as a person. This is a phase and this is what happens. Because some people really don't understand it, do they? I think it is difficult for men to understand. But if you know how to approach it and how to talk about it, then, hopefully that you can work through it together.
Well, women are mysterious in general to men. So
Yeah.
when we start down this different road, it's like reverse puberty. It's like, who is this person? And I can remember I was actually having anxiety attacks at one point where I was trying to figure out if I could make myself sick so I didn't have to go and do something, which was something that I liked doing. and that I did all the time. But it was like, had that anxiety. It's like, can I make myself sick? Can I will myself to be sick? Like that is a kind of a crazy. And my friends took me out to the same friends I was supposed to be going to see. We went out for dinner and they said, we thought you didn't like us anymore. I said,
No.
I said, no, it's not you, it's me. It's just like this stuff is happening and I didn't have a way to manage it.
No.
And it's interesting, here in Canada anyway, the medical system, even though it's modern and well-informed, I feel like they're overwhelmed and the doctors are too young. I had an argument with my doctor about hormones for about 20 minutes. And I said to her, when you hit menopause, I hope you remember this conversation because they only know what they can understand logically. And until you embody it, I think it's hard for people to understand, especially men. Like they have no context at all.
And there's very little, I don't know, I live in Europe, but I think with the education that doctors get, there is very little education on actual menopause. And I totally agree with it. I mean, I'm astounded sometimes when clients of mine, they've been to their doctor for various things, and it's just the classical menopausal symptoms, and they don't even ask them anything about hormones. They'll send them off for some completely like random test where really, if you embraced it and said, I do actually think you're in perimenopause or menopause, looking at it from that aspect, but they don't always think about that. It is getting better in Europe. There's been a bit of a menopause revolution here, and people are really talking about it more, and hormone replacement therapy, etc. But it isn't like that in many parts of the world. There's so much more needs doing in getting that knowledge out there to women.
And I think the research that they're basing their decisions on currently is, here anyway, outdated. Because it's very much on the side of ultra caution of like, it might cause this or this. But when you look at the percentages, you're like, I got a better chance of being hit by a bus. It's like, and I know there's some doctors in the US who are doing more research and advocating, but it takes a long time to shift this kind of mindset over to women are like, I feel sometimes like women's problems were always like, oh, let's not talk about that. Put them in the closet. They're just being a problem. And I think women take on that persona as well. Like they take on that identity of, I don't want to bother anyone with my problems. So for talking to friends and partners, like what kind of strategies do you help people with?
Yeah, I mean, I do have group programs, but I also work very individually with clients. And, when you look at nutrition and lifestyle, it's really just, first of all, finding out what that person is doing in their life. And then when you come into menopause and you age as a woman, you just have to take better care of yourself. I have an 80-20 rule, which is if you do 80% of everything right in your life, as far as what you eat and, your lifestyle and exercise, all of that, you've got 20% that you can kind of play around with, where you can have that glass of wine or you can eat the chocolate or whatever. However, when you get over 40, or when you're like 45 and you're coming into perimenopause, it goes down to 90-10.
Ow.
So it kind of shrinks a bit. But you still got 10%. There's a lot you can do with 10%, because you just have to look after yourself. And if you think that, because sometimes you think, oh, I'll be all right, what's she talking about? I can assure you will feel like that when you do get to that age and you just can't do the things that you used to. For example, wine. We all like, well, some of us like a glass of wine occasionally. I'm not saying you need to drink wine every night, but alcohol and menopause just do not mix. It makes you feel terrible, and it wakes you up in the middle of the night. It increases your hot flushes, night sweats, etc. So you
Is
kind
it
of have
just
to
wine or
reduce.
all the alcohol?
Sorry,
Is
what did you
is
say?
it just wine or is it all the alcohols?
No, it is actually all alcohol. I just took wine as an
Darn
example.
it.
Um,
Not that I drink tons, but you know.
and you can't tolerate these things because your body is going through a big shift, and it's a big metabolic shift. And I think what we don't necessarily think about is that estrogen and progesterone is needed for every bodily system. We think of it as a reproductive hormone, which obviously they are reproductive, but they are needed for so much more. All bodily systems, heart, circulatory, brain, bone health, metabolic health. So when we lose these hormones and they start kind of in perimenopause, they're all over the place. It can become very unbalanced. But when you come into menopause and your ovarian function has stopped and you're not producing these hormones anymore, it has effect on our long-term health. So you need to really sit back and think, okay, what do I need to do now to look after myself a bit more? And when it comes to nutrition, I'm a very realistic person. I realize that we haven't got hours and hours to spend in the kitchen, so it has to be easy.
Yeah.
And it's about eating whole foods. If you're only going to do one thing, try to reduce ultra processed foods in your diet, packaged foods that are laden with sugar and damaged fats. We live in a very toxic food environment. Everywhere you go, it's just processed foods. And our bodies weren't made to eat like that. The human body we were made to eat real food. And real food, what's that? It's like vegetables that you can see, okay, that's a piece of broccoli. It
Right.
doesn't come in a package with 10 different ingredients that you don't even know what they are.
They haven't powdered it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really going back to basics. And, if you eat meat, just having a piece of meat, some vegetables, and, maybe whole grains or some complex carbohydrates. But really removing ultra processed foods. And we're seeing in the health of the world how much chronic disease has increased since, when you look at statistics, you can see how, the rates of obesity, chronic illness have just shot up since we introduced all these ultra processed foods. There's obviously other factors, but that's certainly one of the factors coming into it.
Right.
So if you try to reduce, it's difficult to avoid, but reduce the ultra processed foods because it's sugar. It's all the trans fats, the damaged fats that cause inflammation in the body. And when you're in menopause and you had a decline in hormones, you're more vulnerable to inflammation. So it becomes even worse then. It's kind of, you really need to take extra care, making sure that you're eating all your vegetables and fruits, and more of a Mediterranean style diet. That always comes up in research as being one of the healthiest ways to eat.
Yeah, I remember them talking at one point about obesity. They could also trace back to when they decided fats were bad, and to keep the flavor, they just replaced the fat with sugar. So it's like, your brain is mostly fat. You actually need the fats, right? So
yeah, that was my generation, that we lived basically on sugar, carbohydrates it was like the early 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've now realized that was really wrong.
Right. And I think sometimes it's like you can't remember what it felt like to feel good. So this wasn't necessarily menopause, although I'm sure that it contributed. So in 2023, I broke my wrist and I had to have surgery. And post-surgery, I felt like all of my joints hurt. So I think I just had systemic inflammation. And I'm like, why do I have this now? But I just think I needed time and my body needed time to deal with all of this stuff that was going on. You had surgery, they put a weird foreign plate into your body, and maybe my body didn't like it. And painkillers, although I didn't take any of the hydromorphones they were trying to send me. I'm like, no, I'm not taking those. But it's like all of the healings that have to happen. And I was getting up and down off the floor. I'm a yoga teacher still. I'm like, why is this hard? Getting up and down is usually easy. And that's when I went, oh, I'm inflamed everywhere. How weird. And how do I stop it? It was like, and people say, oh, it's gluten. Oh, it's sugar. Oh, it's X, Y, Z. But I think there's never just one answer, is there?
No, unfortunately, it's not that easy. But a lot of the culprits, when you look at inflammation in the body, sugar is very high up there that drives inflammation. Blood sugar control, insulin, which is the hormone that we need so our body can utilize glucose in our system. All of these things cause inflammation in the body. Gluten, maybe if you have sensitivities or are gluten intolerant, it can be if you've got any sort of food intolerances, that can drive inflammation.
Right.
But the big culprits are sugar, ultra processed foods, damaged fats,
right.
Stress. It's also lifestyle factors can help drive inflammation.
Now, is it the estrogen and progesterone, the adrenals theoretically take over from the ovaries at some point? Is that right? But because we're so stressed out and we're just pumping out the cortisol all the time, there's no room to produce the backups. It's no room for the backup system to turn on.
Yeah, exactly. Our bodies are amazing things, aren't they? If we just would look after them and let them do what they want to do, and all your body is trying to do all the time is create homeostasis. It just wants balance, but we bombard ourselves with so many things that cause unbalance. But what you said is totally correct, Heather. It's your body realizes that it needs estrogen and progesterone, and your adrenal glands will produce a very small amount of progesterone and estrogen. But what happens is when you're chronically stressed, which it seems like everybody is, the stress hormone cortisol is thought of as being, more important because that's like a survival, isn't it? To run away from something. So your body will produce cortisol first, and estrogen and progesterone go on the back burner, because they're not necessary. We need to run away from a tiger.
Wow. So how do you feel about hormone replacement?
Yeah, I'm absolutely pro hormone replacement therapy. It's a very controversial subject.
I know.
And like you say, there's just so much research. Well, there isn't enough recent research, but the Women's Initiative study that came out, it was like the end of the 90s, 2000, was wrongly reported, and that really sent off, so much negativity about hormone replacement therapy. I can remember my mother being on it and being, saying, wow, I feel amazing. And then this report came out and basically all women came off it. And she just started feeling terrible again.
Right.
But there's so much that has happened in that area. And, hormone replacement therapy, when this report, that what they used to make it from was the urine of pregnant mares.
Yeah.
Whereas now, body identical hormone replacement therapy comes from yams. So it's not even the same thing. You can't liken those two products. More research is definitely needed. And I think it's what I say to my clients is get all the knowledge in front of you, all the things that you can use to help you. And then it's your decision. If you want to take hormone replacement therapy, and you can, and it fits with your health and everything, that's entirely up to you. But if you don't, that's also all right. Because I don't know what it's like where you live, Heather, but it has become a bit unbalanced around hormone replacement therapy. And I'm not I think it's brilliant that we're talking about it. So I'm absolutely not negative towards it, but it's kind of like, it's all, everybody has to take hormone replacement therapy, which, some women can't, or some women
Right.
don't want to. And I think it causes they're a bit worried, because, if you don't take it, you're going to get osteoporosis, you're going to get heart disease. Maybe there's a link between dementia and estrogen. We don't know yet. We need more research, really.
Right.
But it has to be a balanced conversation. And I think for some women, it is fantastic. For some women, it isn't.
Yeah. And I think here it feels more like you have to give really good reasons why you want it, because they're so hesitant to give it, because I still think they're using the old research of all the detrimental things. And but as more of the female doctors are getting older, I think they're starting to realize, oh, actually, it could be okay. And I do remember I did take it for a little while before my doctor wouldn't give it to me anymore. And I suddenly felt like, wow, I feel like me again, was what I
Yeah.
felt like. And it's interesting when you like trying to wrap your head around, wow, my hormones have that much of an effect on who I am, right? And that your food does affect your hormone production, because if we think about our bodies as these little factories, they need the proper, inputs to build the right widgets for us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we
So,
are what I know. It's quite like a cliche to say, but we are what we eat. That's what your
yeah,
body is made of. It nourishes you.
right. And what about, so trans fats are bad, sugar is bad. Well, not ideal. Let's not use the word bad. Sugar is not ideal for you, and trans fats are not ideal for you, and um, alcohol. What about, when you look at some things, it's like hydrolyzed proteins. Are those damaged proteins?
No, I mean protein. No, protein in general is. I mean, that's when you look at the macronutrients and nutrients. Protein is good. We want to eat protein, and how there's how you get your protein is quite it's a preference thing, really. Whether it comes from meat, whether it comes from fish, or if you don't eat animal products, you've got soya, you've got nuts and seeds, etc. But protein is really important for women, and we don't tend to eat enough of it, and it becomes even more important when you come into menopause because of muscle loss, bone loss. So really, what I say is you need to eat around about a palm size of protein with every meal,
Oh, wow.
because we don't eat enough protein. You really need to increase your protein a little bit more when you get older as a
And what
woman.
about fiber? I saw some
Yeah,
ad
fiber.
go flipping by that said, you can solve your menopause problems with fiber. I'm like,
Fiber is key, really, really important. And again, it's something that we don't tend to get enough of. You should really think, when you look at your plate, you want your palm size of protein there. You really want half of your plate to be filled up with like vegetables, salads, which are rich in fiber. And then you want your healthy fats. Fiber is needed to keep everything going, and it also for women is crucial for elimination of estrogen, because when we've utilized estrogen, we need to detoxify it. And if you're not eliminating things like you should, your body can reabsorb, and you don't want that, because you
right.
don't want that form of estrogen being reabsorbed. Cruciferous vegetables, brilliant for women. Cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage,
I love
great. But they're
broccoli.
really, really a fantastic thing that women should eat.
I've got this
And
really good
fiber.
Brussels sprouts and bacon recipe, by the way.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
It is. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, so fiber, big thing, and I think it's we don't talk about fiber enough, and it's key for digestion and gut health. And
Is it
gut
no
health
matter what kind
again.
of fiber it is?
Well, there's two sorts. There's soluble and insoluble. You really
Mhm.
want a mix of both.
Okay.
And if you're
Yeah.
eating a plant, lots of plant-based foods, if you're eating nuts and seeds, flax seeds, all of those things, that they're all great sources of fiber. But it's going back to the Mediterranean style diet, a very easy, fish, white meat, nuts and seeds, vegetables, fruits, legumes, beans, all of those sort of things, healthy fats, olive oil, nuts and seeds, avocados, coconut oil, good old butter. They're the fats that we want to be using.
And of course, we can't forget exercise because we have to keep our bodies moving, right? Moving in some way. I know some women hate the gym, so I'm always like, I always let people know, find some kind of movement that you like and do it, because it's like the motion is lotion. Is that? Yeah, that sounds right. For your
Yeah,
joint.
exercise is key, and it becomes again even more important as we age as women, because we need, one thing that happens is that we lose muscle mass, and we need our muscles. Muscles are the organ of longevity. We need them. You really need to keep them, and lifting things. And like you say, Heather, you don't have to go to the gym. It's not everybody wants to go to the gym, but just it's like resistance training. If you have something that you can lift, I actually have some dumbbells by my kettle in the kitchen. So every time I put the kettle on, because I'm British, I drink drink a lot of tea, I just get them and lift them. And okay, it might only, how long's a kettle to boil doesn't take that long. But if you do that a few times a day, you're working on your arm muscles. So it doesn't have to be, a 2-hour workout in the gym, but lifting things is very important for women, also for bone health, because
Right.
that
Yeah.
can decline.
Resistance training, I think, becomes more important than cardiovascular to some degree as you get older because of that. I remember I learned in my 30s about the loss of muscle mass, and I said, no way, I'm not doing that. So I'm 58 now, and I lift weights 3 times a week. Now, I know that's not everyone's jam, but I'm going to keep this body working properly for a really long time. Even when I had a cast on my hand, I was finding ways to keep that arm strong, even though I couldn't use my hand. Oh my goodness. So these bodies, I love these bodies. They're so interesting. They're so intricate. There's so many fun things they can do. And I want to keep mine doing all the fun things. Now I know you have a special gift, the 7-day meal plan.
Yes, it really brings together everything that we've been talking about, and it's a 7-day reset meal plan for menopausal women, well, women 40 plus. And it's really going into, the style of eating, what you should be thinking about, all the wonderful proteins and fats and everything. And it's actually got a shopping list in there as well. So you've got everything that you need to buy. And you can follow it, or you can just take out the recipes and, just try them as you like. So if any of your listeners want to download that, then, I'd be more than happy.
Yes, I'm going to put the link in the show notes, friends. Don't worry. I'm going to go get it because even though I'm fully into menopause, I still have some random symptoms that I wouldn't mind getting rid of, or at least mediating. And I always feel like information just helps you navigate through life, right? The more you know, the better decisions you can make. Because probably the 7-day meal plan is good for everybody.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's that style of eating is healthy for everybody.
Right. So you
Yeah.
can just sneak it in and just tell your husband it's for you, and he's going to do it to support you, and you'll see him get healthier too.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's funny you say that, Heather, because on my group programs that I do, which are for women, and there's meal plans involved in the programs, and that you know, if you're in a household, you're not going to be cooking separately, so the whole family eats these meal plans. And it's wonderful to see, because not only does the woman feel better, but all of a sudden, like, the husband and the children and everybody's feeling much better.
Right?
So yeah.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. That's so awesome. And where do they find you? Your website is
My website is alisonbladh.com. That's BLADH. I'm on all social media. If you just look for Alison Bladh, you'll find me virtually
Alison with
everywhere.
one L.
One L, yes.
One L. Okay. And that will all be in the show notes so that we can make sure that if you're driving, you don't have to get into an accident to get this. And thank you so much, Alison, for coming and sharing and spreading the good word to the world. My goodness, it's so valuable to have all this information. But before we go, you may or may not know, I always give my guest the final word of wisdom or words. Do you have a final thought to share with the audience?
Final thought. You know, one thing that I always say to people is, don't regret getting old, because it's a privilege denied to many.
So good. Oh my gosh, perfect. Love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming and sharing. Friends in podcast land, I bet you know somebody who needs this podcast. So send it over to them with some hearts. Tell them you love them. Tell them that you will join them in the 7-day meal plan if they're willing to try it. Subscribe, like, comment. We love you, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Hi, my friend. Thanks so much for listening to this entire podcast. If you found it useful and you're like me and you like helping others, please feel free to share this. Give it a like, give it a comment. If you found something useful in it, there's a chance that someone else will find something useful as well. Also, if you have any questions at all, I can absolutely help, and I would love to help. You can email me at heather@prosperityflowcoaching.com. If you want more of this awesome content, you can follow me on Instagram, Heather Stewart Coaching. You can follow me on Facebook, Prosperity Flow Coaching. And I have a personal request. I want to help as many people as I can with these podcasts. And if you could give me a review, hopefully a good one, if you could share, if you could send this out into the world, I would truly appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing day, and I hope that you find your way to wellness by getting back to me. Take care, my friend.